Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about circles and more specifically two things on circles, area and circumference. So what you're going to need is a pen or a pencil, your notebook so that you can take notes in your notebook, and then obviously a calculator. Okay, so let's start with some basic vocabulary that you should know about circles. So the center of a circle is the point equidistant from all points on the circle. What that's just trying to say is that the center is the middle point in the circle, and that any line that goes from the center to the edge is going to be the same, and we call that line the radius. So the radius is a line segment with one endpoint at the center of the circle and the other on the circle, the other endpoint on the circle. So every single radius, so you can draw a radius. Well, the plural form of radius is radii, but you can draw radiuses from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. The point is, when we say equidistant, that means that they're all equal or congruent, okay? And then our last vocab word is diameter. So the diameter is a line segment that passes through the center and has endpoints on both sides of the circle. So the diameter is basically just two radiuses. There's one and there's two. So the diameter is two radiuses long and it goes through the center of the circle. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is circumference. So circumference, or the definition of circumference, is the distance around the circle. So when you think about like the perimeter of a rectangle, that's the distance around the rectangle. Like if you were to fence your yard with a white picket fence, that's perimeter. So if we have a shape like a circle, we just call that perimeter something different, and that's the circumference. So the formula for that is c is equal to 2 pi r, or c is equal to pi times d, because remember, two radiuses is one full diameter. Okay, so pi, if you've never known what pi is pi is a number, and it actually is an irrational number, which means that it doesn't have like an end. So it's 3.141562, and maybe you knew that already, but for today and for your homework, all you're going to need to reduce or simplify pi to is 3.14. So it should say in all your directions, like for example 1 and 2, it says find the circumference of each circle, use 3.14 for pi, and so then round to the nearest tenth. So we're going to use these two formulas, and we're going to use 3.14 for pi. So in example number 1, they gave us a radius because it's only half the distance in the circle, right? So we're going to use this formula because they gave us a radius. So c is equal to 2 pi times r. So c is going to be equal to 2 times 3.14 is pi, and then our radius in this problem is 2. So we're taking 2 times 3.14 times 2 in our calculator, and we're going to get 12.56 inches. But they told us to round to the nearest tenth, which means just one decimal place. So that means I look to the other decimal place, and if this number is a 5 or above, then we move that number up one. So my final answer is 12.6 inches. Okay? Example number 2, so in this picture they gave me the full diameter now. So 16 is the diameter, so diameter is equal to 16, that's what d is, so that means we're going to use this formula. So circumference is equal to pi times d, and pi is going to be 3.14 times 16. So if you plug into your calculator 3.14 times 16, our circumference is 50.24 inches. And so we look at this decimal place to see if it's a 5 or above, and it's not, which means that we leave this number as it is. So my final number is 50.2 inches. So that is circumference. So make sure you get the definition, or more especially the formulas down, 2 pi r or pi times d for circumference, so that you can get these examples down so you can do the homework. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is area, and area, as we've always known, is the amount of space that occupies the inside of the shape, and in this particular problem, the circle, so the shaded region below, or this red. So when we talk about area, that's like if we were going to lay flooring in our house, or carpet in our house, or something like that, so the amount of space occupied within the shape of this circle. And so the formula that you're going to want to write down is A, or the area, is equal to pi times the radius squared. squared, pi r squared. Okay, and some people like writing it like this, r squared times pi, because we're going to have to square this number before we take it times pi. Remember PEMDAS? So if you want to write that down here, I'll erase that circle. So if you want to write that down, you sure can. That area is also equal to r squared times pi. Okay, so find the area of each circle, use 3.14 for pi, and then round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so in this picture, for example, number 3, whoops, let's erase that. Sorry. We have a radius of 5, where r is equal to 5. So we have a is equal to pi r squared. So we're going to plug in 5 for r. So remember, we have to square this first, so it's going to be 25 times, and pi we're going to replace with 3.14. So what you're plugging into your calculator is 3.14 times 25. It's just really important that we do exponents before we multiply. So PEMDAS, remember PEMDAS. So 25 times 3.14 in our calculator is 78.5. Feet and area is always in square units, so feet squared. And we didn't have to round special on that one because it only had one decimal place after the decimal point. So that's perfect because that's the nearest tenth. Okay, example number 4. So we have 16 centimeters, but this number is representing the whole diameter, just like in example 2. So if we only want from the center to the end on one side, we're going to need half of 16. So the radius is actually 8 centimeters. So when we use area for pi r squared, there is no other way to find the area unless you have the radius. And so whenever they give you the diameter, you're just going to have to cut it in half to find the radius. So the radius is 8, so a is going to be equal to pi times 8 squared. And 8 squared is 8 times 8, which is 64. So that's 64, and then we're going to take 3.14 times 64 for our area. So our final answer is 200.96. And this is going to get really funky with rounding because we want to round to the nearest tenth, which means we look at this number. Well, that's a 6, which means that we move this number up 1. But if we move 9 up a number, that comes to 10. So that means that we're moving the next decimal spot up another number. So our final answer is actually 201 centimeters squared. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is all that I have for you today. We did 2 examples on circumference, 2 examples on area. So hopefully these questions can be written down in your notebook so that you can reference them when you get to the homework. So I want to thank you all for taking good notes, and I shall see you soon.